Hello, everyone. This is Adrian Alexander, Caribbean Regional Coordinator for Free the Slaves and co-chair of the Membership Committee of the Caribbean Coalition Against Trafficking in Persons. And welcome to another episode of Caribbean Connections. Today, I'm joined by two amazing ladies. I had a chance to meet them about 2 years ago in the beautiful island of Grenada, and they are both from Soroptimist International, Grenada. So please introduce yourselves. Start with Ms. Alexis. Jacinta Alexis and Jacqueline Pascal, or GC as she is known.
Good afternoon, Adrian, and thank you for welcoming us to your program. My name is Jacinta Alexis, known as Jessie, and a number of other things, but we wouldn't go there. I am the current president of Soroptimist International Grenada, and that is one of the many hats that I wear because I'm also a passionate gender justice advocate. I'm also a part-time adjunct with UE Open Campus, as well as recently St. George's University. I'm part-time faculty there as well, and that's recent, the most recent. And I'm also full-time, albeit still in an acting position, senior program officer, which means I am the head of the National Gender Machinery in Grenada. So that's Jessie. Somebody said, oh yeah, and I'm a doctoral student.
Awesome. So nice to meet you, Jessie. Miss Pascal.
My name is Jacqueline Lorice Pascal. I'm a past president of Soroptimist International Grenada and immediate past president of the Soroptimist International of the Caribbean Network. As Jessie mentioned, strong advocate of social and gender justice, being in the conversation and narrative for more than 25 years. Put my IT, my background on the Grenada National Organization of Women, a women's rights organization. I have traveled extensively in conjunction with the work that we do for social justice. So I would have attended meetings in different countries around the world. I'm very proud to say that I was one of the defenders of when we went to Geneva for the concluding observation on human rights, that I was able to be part of that in Geneva to bring to the forefront the conversation and the legislation around sexual harassment. I'm currently the in-country program support officer for CUSO International, an international organization based in Canada. And so glad that we're able to have this opportunity to talk to you about what we do.
Thank you so much, ladies. You both have extensive experience and wield a lot of influence and power, I would assume, in Grenada and through your other work in the Caribbean and elsewhere. So it's great to have you. But I'm curious, how did each of you become a member of Soroptimist? Because Soroptimist is all over the Caribbean. I know quite a few of the founding members and past presidents of Soroptimist International, Port of Spain, and a few from some of the other clubs. But what was your introduction in Grenada to Soroptimist? Start with GC.
Yeah, I blame Lorice for that.
Oh, Lord.
Lorice is going, I'm in this organization and it's women meeting. And from the time I heard women meeting, I started with, yeah, that's not my beat. So it was a lot of retired women and whatnot. But she said, no, Jessie, you do a lot of work, social justice. You need to be here. You need to bring that energy too. And well, I went to one meeting to see what it would be. And I saw opportunity for me to do the kind of work that I need to do in the community. So I went back and then eventually I became a member. So I must say, I'm happier that we could work in the virtual space than in the physical space to go to meetings, quite frankly. That is tedious to me. So that's my orientation to Soroptimists.
Great. So definitely you were influenced by
Very much
By
Ms.
so.
Lorice.
Pascal. Yeah.
Yes.
So Jackie, how
Yeah.
long before you influenced GC? Were you a member of Soroptimist, and who influenced you?
Well, my influence came to a friend of mine who grew up in Banfield. And of course, we were together in the Grenada National Organization of Women, GNOW. And so it was quite a while actually that she been, as Jesse said, we supremacists have this thing about always bothering people of joining Soroptimist group. So she bothered me for quite a while, and I said, okay, I'll come. And so I went to the first meeting, and I was like Jesse, Lord, I'm going to see this bunch of old people there. And but I think I was intrigued by the fact that they were coalescing around women and girls and how to advance their cause. And I think that what got me. Coming from Gina and the work that we were doing on the ground, I thought it was a good fit. And also Soroptimist is a member of Gina because Gina is a affiliate organization. And so, yeah, I'm already a member. So I said, okay, I'll join the Soroptimist. So, yeah. And that is more than 15 years ago.
Okay. So for you, it was like the natural next step. You're in G now. Soroptimist is a member of G now, so why not?
Yeah,
But that's a great commitment for 15 years. So kudos
yeah,
to
it
you.
could be more. Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
it's way more than that.
There's way more.
yeah, it could be more than that.
Yeah, for
I'm trying to
Lorice,
think.
it's way
It
more
could be
than
way
that.
more than that. Yeah, because if you roll in much, it could be way more than that. I'm trying to remember my first meeting, which was in high school. That was a long time ago, where we did a meeting in the Anglican high school on Luther's Lane. I remember that very well. Yeah, in a
Oh,
long
that's
time. Could be
good.
20 years.
So since you both rose in leadership in Soroptimist International Grenada, tell us a bit about Soroptimist there. When did it start? What are its aims and objectives, and some of the work that you do?
So
So that's
that's when
me.
I defer to Lorice. All
All right, so
yours.
yeah. Soroptimist International, that's what it is. It was born in 1921. So you count how many years that is, 101, right? Yeah, in Oakland, California, United States of America. And it was founded by a group of business and professional women led by a woman named Violet Richardson Ward. So at the time, the women were excluded from the many male-only service organization. So those brave women, all these years ago, they said, okay, you have your organization, we'll have ours. And what they came up with this name, which I find very intriguing, because it's the sorrow, S-O-R-O, comes from the Latin for sorrow, sister. And then optima means best. So you come up with, interpret it as the best for women. So we can't go wrong there at all. And one of the first things they did, you remember these our sisters all these years ago, they were already geared to climate change. And the first project they did was to save the redwood, a campaign to protect California redwood forests from logging all those years ago. So that's really the genesis of Soroptimist. And then it morphed into currently 66,000 women all over the world.
So when did Soroptimist International Grenada come to fruition?
So Soroptimist Grenada came to fruition in 1971. So we're 53 years and counting. And that was started by, well, let me see, Ms. Dima put it nicely. She was the first female permanent secretary in Grenada and across the Caribbean, first. And she was in the Ministry of Social Development, of course. So it makes sense, doesn't it? And so in 1971, Louise Rowley started the Soroptimists and she took with her, or brought in with her, women of real, what you call, dynamic women. So we had people like the person who composed our national anthem, Baptiste Blackett, MBE. She was one of the first founders of Soroptimists, and one of our MP, Peter David, his mother, Masila Bruffett. David also was part of that. So currently we have our membership. I think we're about 25 in total, and including that membership, we have our Gloria Payne Banfield, who is the Order of the British Empire. We have Sister Dr. Decima Williams, who is President of the Senate. And so we have these, powerful women, and all of us are powerful women in our own rights. Once we are moved and exercised by women going forward, the empowerment of women and girls, to enable, to educate, and to empower, then we are all a powerful women. And of course, lastly, our patron is our Excellency Dame Cecile La Grenade.
That's your Governor General?
Our Governor General.
Awesome. That is good. Have a patron at the highest level of the state. So
Yeah.
this sounds like a lot of history, wealth of knowledge and experience. As you mentioned, powerful women, dynamic women serving in Grenada. Earlier you mentioned that you are a past president of Soroptimist International Grenada, and JC mentioned she is the current president. So what sort of work do you do in Soroptimist? I know you said broadly advancing the cause of women and girls, but if we break it down, let's say during the immediate presidency before JC and now, what would you say are the focal areas for the work of Soroptimists over that period?
But before I go to Jesse, because if we're going to do this on your connection, it means that all our sisters in the region is going to see this. So I must speak about our connection to Soroptimist International of the Caribbean Network, SICN. And so we have been in SICN for the past 15 years or more. And of course, that's where I was the president and the immediate past president of SICN. And of course, now the presidency has now moved over to St. Vincent, and Sister Renee Baptiste now is the president of SICN. And so we coalesce around access to justice, as we mentioned, and to make countless effort to engage with local gender movement. So if you go back up to SIGB, where, let's call it where we really started from, and being part of that, we have ECOSOC status at the United Nations. So we are part of the Economic and Social Council at the United Nations. And so, which gives Soroptimists globally a voice on important discussion papers. And advocating for women and girls through projects and programs is a lifeblood of our organization, right through. As the ethos of is to ensure equality and equity across the social, political, cultural, economic, and environmental landscape. So all projects are done broadly around those 5 areas. And so Jesse is going to talk to you about some of the things we do. Before Jesse goes, we would have worked a lot in the environment. We look at the environment a lot, and they tend to do a lot of commemorative events. For example, when you have World Earth Days coming up soon, and we'll be planting trees, we're looking at how to save the environment with all the plastics, and so we'll be collecting all plastics. We're making sure but Beryl had torn down a few trees. We'll be replanting the trees and so on and so forth. We have done a lot of work to access the justice as well, and particularly during the days of commemoration, 16 days of activism, we are right there, in particularly working with, and I like that linkage and collaboration with the Ministry of Social Development, and we have been working with them on the 16 days of activism for more than 20 years. So I think that's a lot of collaboration, and to make sure that the narrative change as it relates to women having access, and that is important, to gender justice, for when their rights are violated by whoever party, male, government, wherever, that we are there to make sure that that is corrected, putting policies and programs in place to change and shift that paradigm.
That's so important because there's so many things that can be done in terms of programs and they reach the community, but policy change, where policies shift and legislation shifts, and it is no longer constrained or there are no longer loopholes, but you're able to advocate strongly, and Parliament is able to say, okay, yes, we do have a loophole here. Certain individuals in certain circumstances, whether it's based on gender or based on economics, may not be able to afford access to justice through a lawyer. So do you have things like legal aid and advisory services? Do you have too high an income bracket that needs to probably be adjusted to take into account the current realities? And of course, that could allow for a lot of people who are marginalized to be able to gain access to justice. And of course, throughout the Caribbean, we've seen a slow kind of shift in the rise of women to the role of prime minister in some of our jurisdictions, but not very widespread as yet. So you may find that the old boys club that may exist may continue to try to assert themselves, and you don't see the extent of doors opening for people to access justice, especially women, especially migrants, especially other marginalized people, even persons with disabilities, as was mentioned earlier. So thank you so much for the work that you do, really. And the work clearly is not only in Grenada, because as you mentioned, it goes all the way up to the United Nations through ECOSOC status. That's great. So GC, you are the current president of Soroptimists International Grenada.
I am.
What is the duration of your term? And under your presidency, what has been your focus? And can you probably share with us some powerful achievements that earmark your term?
Okay, so even before I came in, I've been championing disability inclusion. So one of the first projects that we were able to secure was under the Spotlight Initiative project. And we were able to do a short film on raising our voices, where we featured persons with disabilities sharing. We built out from that and secured another project because, we're starting, we're getting our feet wet. And we built out and had under the Global Affairs Canada Community Engagement Fund, through CUSO International, Raising Our Voices, where we did a build out on the first video that we moved. So now we went into having a short movie, very scripted, very much focused on the experiences, the lived realities of persons with disabilities in Grenada. So we did the film, and we keep doing, looking for opportunities for sensitization. So that led us to being able to secure grant funding for the third arm of Raising Our Voices. So we keep going to the next level. And we had, all right, in phase one, we had a launch of the film, and the reaction from the audience, which was not just the stars, but different persons from different sectors across Grenada, and their reaction was, it was an eye-opener. They did not realize this was the reality. Because more often than not, they're either invisible, or if they are seen, their voices aren't heard. They're not in leadership positions, they're not self-advocating. So that took us to the third one, which is same Raising Our Voices. This time we're not focused on doing the movie, but building out the voice. We are not speaking for persons with disabilities, but we're working with persons with disabilities to push for policy change, to advocate for policy change. So we had on June 1st, the first ever OPD high-level policy dialogue. We facilitated that here in Grenada, and that was June 2nd, and then June 3rd and 4th, we collaborated with Ministry of Social Development. So therefore, the information that was garnered in the first OPD session, we now use that to feed into the discussion, the high-level policy dialogue on disability inclusion from stateside. So that is just an example of some of the things we've been doing and continue to do. And the Raising Our Voices in Disability Inclusion keeps evolving, because through the fund, we've been able to secure, and we are going to be launching that, a podcast. If you look in the background, we have the Real Talk. Let me see if I can move away so you could see it. Yeah. I'm doing the best I can.
Oh, that's lovely. So,
Right?
Regional Disability Inclusion Podcast. It's called Real
Yeah.
Talk on Disability Rights and the Future We're Building Together. Hashtag Inclusion for All. That is so cool to see.
Yes. So this is what we are in the midst of producing at the moment, because we had to do the recording and then you had to do the editing. Well, you know the drill. And we're not experts, so it's taking a little longer but we are pushing ahead. So we had 10 beautiful scripts. Yeah, 10. And then we're supposed to have 2 bonus episodes yet to be recorded, but we're pushing ahead. We're doing what we need to do. And coming out of this as well, we recently launched, and that would have been March 26th, I believe. We would have launched the Sunflower Hidden Disability Campaign in Grenada. So we've been doing a lot of work, but it's not just on disability inclusion. Our focus is gender equality and social inclusion. That is our agenda. So we are finding ways of communicating. We've gone to the youth. We spoke with the youth, and we got the youth voices around disability inclusion. We've had meetings with and collaborations with the national OPD to push the agenda because we are focusing on policy. We cannot speak for, but we can work with to effect the change that we know is needed. So that sums up. Lorice could share about the other projects that we've also done under the Community Engagement Fund.
Before we pivot, though, you mentioned the acronym OPD. For persons who may not be...
Organization of Persons with Disabilities.
All right. So this is an NGO
It's
or...
different organizations. So that represent their clients, their beneficiaries, their constituents are persons with disabilities. So whether it's Grenada National Council for the Disabled, Advocacy Grenada Inc., Grenada Society for the Deaf, the Autism Society, these are all representatives of persons with disabilities.
Okay. So the OPD is like an umbrella organization then?
No, it's how you refer to organizations, NGOs, that the constituents are persons with disability.
Okay, okay. And you mentioned Sunflower as the title of the campaign. What does that entail? Because I'm hearing
the
sunflowers.
Sunflower Hidden Disability Campaign is basically shedding light on the hidden disabilities. When we say disability, the one thing that people think about is if you're amputee, you're in a wheelchair, those things that you can see, but we have other disabilities that a range of hidden disabilities, invisible. So you will look at the person and you will some people would say, oh, you don't look like you have a disability, but you know you are working with a disability. So the hidden disability is a lanyard, a sunflower lanyard that when you're wearing it, once you're wearing it, the lanyard, it identifies. You don't need to explain anything that I am a person with disability, a hidden disability. You don't need to explain. And the service rendered, should, I don't want to say cater to, but recognize you may need a little more assistance and recognize the person before you see the disability. So you take that into context and tailor your service accordingly.
So that requires a lot of community sensitization so that people will know when they see the lanyard, because the lanyard speaks to a hidden disability, but there's a wide range of hidden disabilities or invisible disabilities.
So we are looking at how we can, again, partner with the Ministry of Social Development to cater to offer training to key sectors, key entry points. So like immigration, customs, financial institution in the schools, etc., so that this would be points of where the lanyards would be located, and we would have posters and what have you, so that they can put it up in their respective spaces to recognize what this is about.
And it's so important. And I remember during the years of COVID-19, how there was this disparity of service and sometimes no service at all provided to persons with different types of disabilities. As you said, people normally associate the word disability with someone with a challenge in terms of mobility, blindness, deafness, hidden disabilities that may involve like intellectual and other. There is so little information about those, so that people working in hospitals, as you mentioned, schools and business places and banks, there has to be that type of widespread sensitization so that they know how to provide the required accommodations for those individuals and not simply, well, we have a ramp, and assume that that's going to meet the need of every person living with a
Oh, yes.
disability. Mhm.
Oh, yes, definitely. And that is why we are continuing to be passionate about making the effort. I'm not saying that our national body, Council for the Disabled, isn't doing the work. They are most definitely. What we are doing is what we are good at and providing the necessary support. We know policies in and out. We also know research and the value of having the data, and how we also are very, very good at coordinating our efforts, know who doing what where, and make sure we coordinate the efforts so you can get the maximum impact. This is not about striking territorial ground. This is about making sure we get the change that we are looking to have.
Thank you so much for sharing that in particular, because sometimes we get the impression that this is all about advocacy. But as you said, it's research. Being able to collect the research, analyze it, and utilize it effectively so that the data presented tells a story that policymakers need to hear so that they can appreciate that there must be a shift, but that shift has to be in a particular direction. It has to take a certain course so that it will be effective. And that goes way beyond just advocacy. So thank you so much for revealing that, because I think our viewers and listeners would have a much better understanding of the breadth of work that Soroptimist International Grenada is doing. And I would say my own fascination, as it were, with the topic of disability rights is kind of linked to one of our leadership committee members here at the Caribbean Coalition Against Trafficking Persons. And his name is Ms James. He's from St. Lucia. And in addition to being the president of the National Council of and for Persons with Disabilities there, he's also president of the Disabled Peoples International North America and Caribbean region.
Okay.
So I've learned so much from him. He's a passionate speaker and a fount of knowledge and wisdom on disability rights. So I love what I'm hearing in terms of the work that you're doing. So let me know if you need me to connect you, because hey, we network.
That was one of the reason why I was raising the hand, because yes, we need to connect.
Most certainly.
And something else I should have identified, when we had that high-level policy dialogue, we didn't just keep it to organizations of persons with disabilities in Grenada. We did a regional. So we, in fact, supported the representation of Kerry and Eiffel to be, and you know Kerry and Eiffel, hey, that's a powerhouse right there. And we supported that effort to get her in. We also had another powerhouse, albeit virtually, which would be Erin Brown out of the Bahamas. Erin Brown is again a powerhouse disability inclusion advocate, among many other things.
Well, that's cool. I mean, I love what I'm hearing. And the fact that this is what you do throughout the year is not something that you wait until International Day of Persons with Disabilities in December to do something in a tokenistic manner. This is a commitment that
It's
SI Grenada
intentional.
has made.
Yeah,
Definitely.
we very, very intentional about this. And I'm too passionate. And that is why I look, because I wear many hats. So as a student, a doctoral student, disability. As the head of the gender machinery, I have put disability inclusion on the agenda, because we can't be talking gender equality and social inclusion when we're leaving out a key section of our population to push that agenda. And as a friend like you, when I went to university, I had one of my darling friends. She was a person with disability, and she, we never treated her like she was anything other than a beautiful person, that one of our friends making mischief together, right? So, and when you heard of some of her stories, you just started going, no, this cannot, this cannot. When I did my postgrad studies, my focus was again on disabilities. So, it just keeps building. I have had students in UWI open campus, and they were persons with disabilities, and I was not aware. I had to come up with strategies to ensure that their experience was engaging and interactive. So I had to take my time and figure out, and mind you, I didn't have any training. I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I know the one thing that must be done: they must not feel ostracized.
That is so true. Even for us here with Free the Slaves and the Caribbean Coalition, we recognize that content needs to be accessible. And I know in a previous conversation, I think last year or so, I would have shared with you that because a lot of the information about, let's say, trafficking in persons and exploitation seldom considers the needs of people who may have hearing loss, We're trying to convert some of our content that speaks to the vulnerability of persons with disabilities to trafficking and exploitation, to make it accessible through sign language. So if you don't mind and would love to share and get a wider audience for the video and the film that you've done, if it is available in sign language already, has been made accessible, that is something we would love to
It's
share.
transcription, but
Okay.
we didn't do sign language for the film.
Okay, we can have a conversation and see if we can collaborate to make that happen. Yeah.
Thank you.
My pleasure, And we took so long, I forgot Lorice was also going to share on some other projects. But this really touches my heart.
But just to add, we talk about person facing intersecting form of marginalization and discrimination. So there you have it, the work that we were doing with person with disability that really falls into that category a lot. And of course, our women and girls. I just want to talk a little bit about what we're doing for our girls. And so Soroptimists, under the CUSO International
Community Engagement Fund.
Okay.
The Community Engagement Fund.
Yes,
under International.
Blueprints, the Community Engagement Fund. We would have done a project called Empowering Girls to Navigate their Periods with Dignity. And so we thought that that was affecting schoolgirls, and we worked with Program for Adolescent Mothers and the Grandance Social Development Center on Grandance Beach. So we have the age cohort around maybe 15 to age 20 girls. And we talked about the project was aimed to give them information on the menstrual cycle and also to provide hygiene products. So we were able to do that under that project. And we want to disrupt the negative information that is all there, and also the stigmatization even of having your period. So the problem really was that we recognized that period poverty was a contentious social issue, and that posed challenges for girls, but for women, and particularly our school girls in Grenada. And so Manasseh was often seen as a sign of readiness for sexual activity. And of course, with our statistic on sexual violence, it's, to me, I'm for lack of a better word, it's appalling. And any cases going to the assizes in any given period, 35% are of a sexual nature. So we were really had to do this because those two girls, and particularly girls brought up by adolescent mothers, because these are young mothers, and how being preyed upon, once they start showing maturity, signs of maturity. So period poverty, characterized by a lack of access to menstrual product, hygiene facilities, and education, which lead to physical, mental, and emotional challenges. So that's where we come up with that. And so we did that with those two schools, but not only did we provide the product, but we also had some sessions around that. And so we look at the law, because if they were violated, and particularly a girls from Program for Adolescent Mothers, some of those girls could be as young as 12 years old. Now, they're not even allowed to be sexually involved at that age group, because 16 years is the age of consent in Grenada. So that's a violation of their rights, the legal rights. And so we had sessions for both the girls, the different Program for Adolescent Mothers, and the girls at the Social Development Center on the law on youth. And we also look at what it is to the rape. We went in deep, because as far as concerned, 12-year-old is rape, and the maximum penalty for rape in Grenada is 30 years. So to give them information on what they need to know about their rights and how they could go forward, informed of what they should do. So just
Those are some very important projects. I remember having a conversation with two NGOs in Belize. We interviewed them for Member Spotlight because they're both members of the Caribbean Connection, of the Caribbean Coalition Against Trafficking in Persons. But they worked separately and also collaboratively to see an increase in the age of consent in Belize, and also to address the cultural challenges, those norms that would have gained acceptance over the decades, that, as you mentioned, the onset of puberty marks the availability of this child for sexual activity, and how that entire process, community engagement over time and sensitization, really educating the people to understand what the science says and what and how the global policies and laws have shifted in light of the science. So it's not somebody coming and taking a moral high ground and saying, stop doing this. It is physically damaging, and as you mentioned, psychologically and emotionally damaging to the girls to be in these circumstances, and to see how that shift takes place. So I applaud that work that you're doing. Really, I can see age 16, I think, was the age of consent in Trinidad until the around 2015 or so, with the Children's Package of Legislation to give effect to the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, and a lot of lobbying and so on as well, that will have led to an increase to the age of 18, because again, the science speaks. And I think that's a powerful tool to be able to utilize to see those shifts take place in our region.
But since we're having a conversation, what do you think about, is it Trinidad shifted the age to 18? what did that do to sexual violence? Was it increased? Because here, even though it's 16 years for consent, we have men basically saying after 12 is lunch.
Yeah, yeah. That is a common statement, unfortunate, throughout the region. And that's where behavior change, that's where consequences, I mean, there's so many things that need to be brought to bear to ensure that that shifts. And again, cultural norms. There are lots of cultural norms which facilitate exploitation, facilitate trafficking for exploitation. And we need to ensure that there's a shift so that culture can now be utilized to stop these horrific activities. And it's possible. It's possible. There's something in terms, as you mentioned, treating with the issue of men. We're looking at in September to October, some conversations with some persons who have developed an international model that they are using with men who have life controlling issues, whether it's sexual violence, whether it's purchasing sex, whether it's addiction to pornography or addiction to gambling and so forth. And they're using solution focused mind renewal, as it's called, in that regard. So we exposed some social workers in one of the islands to some of the training a couple of years ago, and they found it very helpful for when they're working with their clients. So this year, God willing, we want to expand it to more persons in the region, especially if you have a program that's working with men and boys to help shape a different way of thinking, and help them appreciate how better to focus their attentions and become allies for the rights of women and girls and allies against sexual violence and criminal acts generally being perpetrated by men and boys in society. So there's a lot of work to do, and we have to work together to get
I'm glad you changed that, because I was thinking about the theory of change, and the theory of change is to do with dismantling toxic masculinity. And what you just shared there, it seems to be on the right road to dismantling that. One of the projects we have done, not necessarily Soroptimists, but worked on the Spotlight Initiative, which had a whole pillar on dismantling toxic masculinity. How do you work with men? Because if the violence, and particularly gender-based violence, is caused by them, the majority, not saying not women, but the percentage is largely men. How do you shift that pattern? How do you change that mindset? And how do we need to work more with our men on the ground, looking for those influencers on the ground who would change the conversation in terms of shifting to be more proactive in terms of where women and girls are concerned. And I don't know, Jess, you might be bringing it up, but today we closed our session with a powerful presentation by a police officer. And one of the things we were talking about parenting. This is Parenting Week. And where does it start? In the home. In the home. You got to do something about that.
That is true.
Definitely.
Because if the parent has that same cultural norm ingrained in their mindsets and their attitudes, they're passing it on every day, right?
Every generation. Every generation. Yes.
So that is a conversation I think we can schedule for some time this year, particularly because I know from what I've been reading, there are programs in Grenada and from Grenada that have been working with men and boys to address some of these same challenges. I saw last October, I think, a minister from Grenada participated in a regional family conference, speaking about the work that is being done in Grenada. So we can probably try to pull some of these allies together and collaborate on something. Yeah. But it's a good discussion to have, and you rightly said it, Lorice. It starts in the
Yeah,
home. It
in
starts
the
in the
home,
home.
prevention and social norms starts in the home.
Yeah.
And we guess we could talk about that because there are programs in Grenada, which is currently actually there's one today actually. So just I'll hand over to Jessie. I think it's a good conversation to have.
Switching hats now. To pull the other hat, the National Gender Machinery, we have 4 units: Gender-Based Violence Unit, the Men's Bureau, the Gender Equality and Inclusion Unit, and the Parenting Education Unit. And as you would recognize, all of these units worked towards advancing gender mainstreaming by addressing the power inequalities that we are dealing with that has been firmly entrenched for centuries. So the Men's Bureau, we have 2 persons in it. And not because we don't see the importance, but human resources is an issue. That's the reality. And the same 2 men in the Men's Bureau actually have to provide the support for the Gender Equality and Inclusion Units. So, right. And then we have the Parenting Education Unit with the officers within that space, work within that space. Now, a lot of the research that we've had over the years have identified that parenting is an issue. It is contributing to a lot of the social issues that we are facing and we will continue to face. When the family structure is impacted, society experiences the fallout. And that is what we have been seeing time and again. Now, I want to link this now to the men. Now, we have a way that we blame the men for all the ills in our society. But I have a question. Who's raising these men? I'm not apologizing for their actions. Don't get me wrong. They are to be held accountable. Everybody needs to be held accountable for their actions. So if everybody is to be held accountable for their actions, we also need to question why we are continuing to raise men that cannot or will not or are not able, and that was something he brought across, the facilitator today, he brought it across in his intervention. We continue to raise men that cannot process their feelings in a way that they're not allowed to without being targeted for expressing their feelings. So the only way they can express their feelings is through violence. We don't process, we don't, connect on those levels. But so that goes right back to parenting. So when we see gender-based violence occurring, we have not been socialized in such a way where we allow persons to be engaged in healthy relationships. And it begins at home. Healthy relationships begin at home. I am living the living example because I would have grown up in a household where I saw healthy relationships in effect. So I made a conscious decision to repeat that and share the love and do what I need to do. Violence is not my first option. So how many persons have that kind of background? How many persons had that kind of experience? Adrian, I don't know what your experience is, but we are living more than not the trauma of our childhood. For those persons who have experienced trauma, whether it's vicarious or hands-on primary.
Yeah.
And we continue to live out that and continue to play out that in our society. And we're not acknowledging we are actually harming our children. When we moved away from a community raising a child, because there was accountability not only to self or your house, there was an accountability to the community. We started, well, it probably had other experiences, but that is one factor we need to look at. When we moved away from a community raising, what the Africans say, it takes a village to raise a child. When we moved away from that concept and we became insular, we are starting to see people not able to relate to each other. We're not socializing with each other. And therefore, when it's summer, when school break goes on break, you would see children outside playing. Now you could drive around, you ain't see nobody outside playing marbles. I mean, the games have changed, but the point is they would be outside playing, negotiating, getting into scuffles with each other. And they figured out conflict resolution by dint of interaction. Now, when they have an issue, they fly inside to get a weapon to come back outside to deal with the issue, regardless of the age. So, we need to really take a step back and address some of these issues, and we need to go younger. We keep thinking we just make the material, the content age appropriate, but we need to go younger. And we need to own our action.
Powerful statements, and completely accurate because, for example, in Free the Slaves, we do community-based training, right? And that community engagement revolves around our Community Liberation Initiative Toolkit. And at least our own research within the organization over 20 or so years has proven that vulnerability to exploitation and trafficking arises from 5 particular critical issues. I'll just speak to one which reflects what you were sharing, and that is household insecurity. And it not only speaks to things like poverty, but all of what may broadly be termed adverse childhood experiences and adverse community events that occur in the life of a child. So up to the age of 18, depending on the different types of experiences that have occurred, it can affect you behaviorally, psychologically, it can lead to addictions, it can lead to early death by like 20 years, the onset of disease that's not even in your family line. And it's because it's unresolved, right? If it's unresolved, the toxicity builds up, the mindsets are becoming more and more entrenched. However, there's a whole broad area of science now that speaks to positive childhood experiences and how they can undo the effects of adverse childhood experiences. So these are some of the things that we include in our training because people need to know that if we don't treat with things that we normally minimize at a cultural level, they come back, they show up somewhere, somehow. One area is in domestic violence and intimate partner violence. Another area is in disease. Another area is in gang affiliation. Another area is in substance abuse. It's showing up, but we're not connecting the dots. But the science has connected the dots for us since 1998. With PCEs now, or positive childhood experiences, the dots are being connected again to see that this is not a death sentence if you experienced or witnessed some form of violence when you were a child. However, we have to now begin to teach, share, train, impart the ability to create positive childhood experiences at community level, at the family level, so that we see what is now a very imbalanced situation where people in terms of mental health and the effects of toxic stress on their lives is going to level out to the point where the impact can be dissipated, as well as you're now creating a new culture of people who know how to resolve conflict, of people who know how to socially engage appropriately, of people who know how to support one another and not ridicule one another, not pulling your brother down because he says this or that, or pulling your sister down. So that's a process. Cultural change takes time, but it must be done, and it must be done intentionally, which goes back to the solution focus, mind renewal, or other types of modalities that you can teach people skills so that they can see that shift internally. It's not just going to a therapist and relying on that person. No, these are things you can do at home. These are things that you can practice with your children, with your spouse, and so on, and build up that capacity. And also, through shifting that culture, you're building resilience in your family line against the now seemingly prevailing mindsets, but which will become a minimal mindset because we have to get this and we have to get this right. So thank you so much for speaking. I mean, this isn't where we plan to go with this discussion, right? But oh my goodness, I love the pivot because it's real. This is really what our Caribbean is facing, and we are making
Yes.
the connections for the Caribbean. So thank you so much, Jesse. So are there any projects for which you're open to having partners or need funding? We already talked about the sign language thing for your video, so we're going to work on that. All right.
Right. And we want to continue the work. We really need to continue to work with and be very, very intentional. So there's always opportunity for collaboration, and whether it's matter of fact, collaboration when you have limited resources as we do, we have very, 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 very limited resources. I kid you not. So we have to get right now, to be honest, if I look sharp, I will end up seeing our balance could be heading into. So we really need to get, if we need to continue to work in an intentional way, we need support of partners, technical and financial resources, to be honest.
So persons wish to contact Soroptimist International Grenada for that collaboration, for that support, or for help so that you could provide some training to them in their situations or some support for them at community level. How do they make contact with the organization?
Our email is sigrenada sigrenada@gmail.com. I needed to repeat it. And sigrenada@outlook.com.
So any final words, ladies, as we come to a close of what has been a phenomenal discussion on so many levels and on so many topics?
Well, for me, I would love, and on behalf of Soroptimists, it was, this opportunity was timely in that we were able to share, connect the dots, and see opportunities, other opportunities that we did not even think of being a possibility. So yeah, we really appreciate this opportunity.
It's our pleasure. And before we close, you mentioned your podcast. The platform that you use for your podcast, would you like to share that so that our viewers and listeners would be
So
able to
what we
access it?
visualize for the podcast is using Spotify, Apple, and YouTube.
Okay.
Those are the three spaces. So as soon as we actually as soon as we actually finish the first editing, then we now have to explore getting it onto Spotify. What are the rules and regulations, Spotify, Apple, etc. And then we create our YouTube channel. We're gonna also look at boosting it because we want boosting it on Facebook. So we would hype it up through Facebook, and we will launch it on Facebook as well. We had a physical launch, well, virtual launch. So now we need to do it again for a wider audience and get it out there because we really want, and it's regional. The guests are not only Grenadians or country. We had guests in Barbados, guests from because we went for where the expertise lie, depending on the topic area. The one area that I kid you not have been having challenges getting the expertise, and I really prefer that it's regional, is for the climate change and disaster preparedness, is to get somebody at that level who can do, but we're still working on it.
Okay,
We
there's
will
a
get
lady in Trinidad who's putting on a conference from the 1st to the 3rd of June. It's a second conference on those same topics, especially with disaster risk management and so on. It's called the Trinidad and Tobago Disaster Risk Management Conference. So she has a lot of expertise and information. So I can always connect you, see if she may be a good fit.
Particularly if it is around disability, because our area focus, everything is for persons with disabilities.
Yeah. She did it the first time 2 years ago, and that's kind of like how we connected. And I was able to put her in touch with leaders of different disability groups in Trinidad and Tobago. So she's emphasized that she's, again, creating that space for discussion as to how persons with disabilities are impacted by these extremely challenging and sometimes scarily increasing.
That is what you need.
Climate events. Yeah. No
That's
problem.
what
I'll
we need.
connect
So
you.
if you could hook us up.
Yes.
I know she's probably busy right now, so maybe after the event we could connect, but yes.
Awesome. Great. All right. This has been Caribbean Connections. Thank you so very much for viewing. And if you want to see more content, more episodes from this particular playlist, please visit the Caribbean Connections playlist on our YouTube channel. Thanks again to Ms Jicinta Alexis, President of Soroptimists International Grenada, and Ms Jacqueline Pascal, member and past president of Soroptimists International Grenada, for taking the time to spend with us today, really sharing from their hearts some of the work that they do and some of the possibilities that they see for our Caribbean. So we're connecting the dots across the region, and we invite you to continue to view Caribbean Connections and to share with us what other topics you would like for us to discuss. For now, I'm Adrian Alexander. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Goodbye.